This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real-life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments. Parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Gerety and Jill Tirone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of our Dance Studio 411 podcast. Jill and I today are very happy to be discussing strategic planning with you for the new dance season. And I mean, gosh, we just love strategic planning and making new, fresh goals and putting new eyes on a season, don't we, Jill?
Absolutely. Especially with the season that we've just come out of, it seems so great to crack open a fresh notebook or a fresh spreadsheet or redoing and looking at things differently. I think it's just a great way to kick off this new season that we're heading into and really taking a look at how we can be more effective and more productive and really taking a good leadership role in the dance studio.
Yeah, we know it's been a challenging few years, and we just really want to thank you for everything that it takes to get up every day and turn that key at your studio and start over and do it again, because it is so important. These kids and these families need dance more than ever. It has been a lifeline for them. It continues to be such a source of just positive, all the things that come from dance. It's easy to forget that when we're kind of dragged down in the mess of cleaning up what has been, it's been an intense time. So Jill and I really want to make sure that at the very beginning of this process of strategic planning is that you really take some time to look at what worked. We call it, celebrate the wins, really write it down. And Jill, we are pretty good about this, aren't we? Consistency around writing down what worked.
Definitely. We do it with our team. We celebrate our weekly wins on Friday, and it's so wonderful to see what our team has to say. And sometimes you have to really ponder, and maybe it's been a rough week, but there are always wins that you can pull out. And I think when you look back at this season, boy, there are so many positive things that have happened, so many wins to celebrate. So make this part of your practice if you don't already. Suzanne, I know that you're a big writing down the wins. I think you do it on Mondays, but you do it weekly for sure. I do gratitude every day. So it's a good way to celebrate, because if it's written down and you're thinking about it and you see it in front of you, you're more apt to remember those highlights, and you're more apt to remember the really good things about what has happened, as opposed to some of the little unpleasant things that may have happened in this past season.
It's a great exercise to do with your faculty and staff to try it. It's awesome. And then from there, you can ask the really important question of what didn't work. I prefer this over what's wrong, because, there's always going to be opportunities for improvement. That is a methodology of really smart businesses, which is what didn't work. Problem solving is what we do as business owners or leaders of any of the work we're running. And so opportunities for improvement will help you start to see where your strategy is going to be for the next season. And Jill, we talk about, sometimes people say, well, how do I get to that point? You could simply ask for your own self the question, what do you want to do more of, or what do you want to do less of? And you have a great point of how to get to that, right?
Yeah, I love it's called skills versus wills, or skills and wills. It's a great exercise. You can just take a quick piece of paper, write skills on one side and write wills at the top on the other side of the paper, and then write down all the things that you are skilled at, which I know as studio owners, gosh, the list is going to be really, really long. However, when you look at that skills list, what out of those things do you really want to do? Maybe you are working on your bookkeeping right now, but you may be skilled at it, but are you really willing to do that? Is it something that you'd like to hand off? Is it something that maybe in this new season, 2022, 2023, that you take off your plate and you outsource that? So again, skills versus wills. What are you skilled at, but what are you also then willing to do or not willing to do? So where is your time best spent based on what you can do?
Exactly. And so once you take just some time to do that, sort of getting that inventory around all the things that worked, the wins, the things that didn't work that you want to improve, and then the skills and wills. It's an awesome starting point to then start to really say, okay, now that we know what we did and where we want to go, what are some of the concerns that are on our minds? And it's there's a philosophy out there called like the obstacle is the path, or the very things that are standing in our way are the raw materials to help us achieve our goals. And so some of those issues or some of those things in our way that we know, Jill, are been self-reported from our members. We talk to hundreds of studio owners. We are in the studio life ourselves. So these are just a few, and I'm sure that there's many things that keep you up at night. But enrollment, how's our numbers going to be going into the fall? I mean, some of us have recovered pre-COVID levels. Some of us are still trying to get there. There are what we know to be the rising costs and inflation. Jill, the third point on here, student engagement took a hit, didn't it?
Oh gosh, attendance, especially towards the end of this season, I think everybody was getting very burned out and worn out. So we've seen a lot of issues in our member group about how is attendance? How are we going to keep our students engaged? How, especially those teenagers, right? So again, that I think is more of an issue now than it ever has been, even though it's always been prevalent, especially towards the end of a season. But how do we keep our students engaged? How do we keep them committed, especially post-COVID?
Mm-hmm. And we know that the cost of your studio space could be facing some higher cost due to, everything from utility bills. Turning the lights on is more expensive. We get that. It's tricky. And that trickles into what parents' affordability will be, and all the way down to paying your staff. And then just frankly, the complexity of communicating with families is, Jill, that's a full-time job, isn't it?
Yeah, we've seen how difficult it is to get correspondence and communication over to the parents and actually have them read it or absorb it. But now it just seems like it's even worse. And I'm, from a parent standpoint, I'm trying to figure out how to manage it all, because there are so many emails and there are so many different ways that information is coming into my home and into my world when it comes to my kids and all the school stuff versus dance stuff. So again, things like using a band app or using some sort of a tool and making sure that you're posting everything everywhere so that they can easily find information. But yeah, it is definitely a top concern for this season.
Exactly. So when you think of your strategic plan and where you want to head, it's important that we shine a light on these things that keep us up at night, because they are the raw materials that we can use these perceived problems or obstacles as our greatest opportunity, in which that helps us get into sort of like, from there, what do you want? No doubt, Jill, everyone listening to this podcast, you are the hardest worker I know. Everybody listening to this, you are driven, you are a hard worker, you give it your all, but the real strategy is like, you've got to know why you're doing this, right? Why are we doing this?
My favorite thing to talk about is the why. Why are we getting up every day? Why are we doing what we're doing? Yes, we love it. Yes, we want to make a profit, but it's really trying to put it into words and articulate that it's really important. So, when you're looking at your strategic planning, it's really long-term planning. Strategic planning isn't basically what you're going to do this week. You will do things to reach your long-term goals, but you have to sit down and really think about your why and think about what you want to achieve. When you sit down a year from now, Suzanne, when we do this podcast again in a year, we want to know, what do you look back on and say, wow, I'm so glad that I was able to accomplish that? How do you want to feel this time next year? How do you want it? What do you want to have had as your results this time next year? And write it down. Find some way to put that into place.
Yeah. And some of you listening might be like, I don't even know. Like, I'm so tired or I'm so burnt out. I don't know. Well, I've been there many times and continue to have to pull out of it, because every year brings its new challenges. So where do you go? Sometimes you have to get back to your why through the values and the mission and the vision of your business. And it is the question of, what do you get out of bed every day to do, and why are you doing it? And sometimes it is a written mission statement that you have on your website, or you have it printed in your lobby, or you have it on the top of a bulletin board. I don't know, wherever you have it, get back to that. And I know, Jill, I've shared many conversations with you throughout the years that at our own dance studio, my own dance studio, when we're going through hard times and we have to make maybe a really difficult staffing decision, or we have to make a decision to like remove a family. It always comes back to, no, it is guided by our mission and vision. And if it doesn't align with that, then we're not doing it, or we're going to stop or start something. So this is a great place to really get back to center.
Reviewing that mission statement, going back to your values and your vision is so important. So definitely do this. If you haven't looked at your mission statement in a while, take a peek at it. And it may have changed in the last couple of seasons, that's for sure. So great timing to dust that off and maybe think about it. Have your values changed a little bit? Have you aligned in a different sort of way? Have you seen things in your studio in the last couple of years that you want to maybe get rid of and do more of the things that really light you on fire?
Exactly. And so it's not until that you've done this work of really doing the inventory of what worked and what didn't, where do you want to improve? Then, what are the obstacles that I'm facing as a business owner that I'm going to use as raw material to move through it? And then from there, what do you want a year from now to look like, or two? And then why are we doing it? It then drives you into the goal setting process. I think too many people get wrapped up in setting goals way too soon. They don't take the time to go up to the top. So you're really good about this, Jill. And I thought maybe it's a great time to revisit SMART goals.
SMART goals. I know many of you have heard this before, but SMART goals are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time bound. That's the acronym for SMART. So if you have gone and looked at your mission statement, gone back and really figured out the results that you want to achieve for this coming year or the next 5 years, maybe it's even a 10-year plan, then you can start to set these goals. But like you said, Suzanne, it's important to lay the groundwork first. Then the goals become easier to set. So when we're talking about SMART goals, please really be as specific as you can. And I know that's why we lead off with specific, but everybody wants to increase their enrollment, I would say. So that's a great place to start. But you want to, maybe it's increase your enrollment by 20% by January 31st through targeted social media campaigns for Facebook and Instagram. So that's a very specific, it's time bound, it's achievable, it's relevant. It's all of those things that make up a good goal that you can really achieve. If you just say, hey, I want to increase my enrollment, that's great, but it's not going to get you where you want to be because you don't have that measurability that you want to have. And Suzanne, you have a great point when you look at your studio about the actual space. So if you want to increase your enrollment and you think that 20% is really going to be a good place to get there, to, a good goal to have, can you actually make that happen in your schedule and in your physical space?
Yeah, you could. This is a great time to say, what is our max capacity of classes? If you have 20 classes on your schedule a week and you know that the maximum enrollment in certain classes is only 8 dancers and another one might be 15, you can start to really know, okay, my goal is to get 2 new students in our Tuesday at 5 p.m. tap and ballet class. And you really, when you put it out there as that tangible, it is very achievable because you've given it a name. And to your point, you've given it a time bound. So, and Jill, you have examples of this and we could go on for days, but just then not only increasing, but where can we cut things, right? You have a good example of decreasing time on task.
Definitely. So another example that I have is I want to cut the amount of admin hours spent on parent communications. Who doesn't want to do this, right? But I'm going to say even further, I'm going to cut it by 2 hours per month. And I'm going to do that by implementing canned responses, automatic replies, things that I can just quickly copy paste or set up a system to get the information out. Maybe it's a great little canned response that says, hey, thank you. This is on our website. You can find that here. And you insert the link that gets them to all that information specifically on the website. But again, it could be something as simple as cutting back admin hours that you're spending by constantly replying to emails or phone calls. Have some canned responses, scripts that you can use, and then you can really cut it back.
Yeah, it's good. And we could go on for days for goals, but you get the point, everyone listening to this. It's like, don't start setting goals without taking the time to get up from the top. Then the goals will start to become apparent of what needs to happen. And so, we've shared before that we feel it too, but we know that rising costs are affecting us as studio owners and as humans, as people, parents. But remember that dance education is priceless in the sense that you cannot measure the self-esteem, the confidence, the joy, the self-expression that comes from being in class. But remember that coupled with that, because you want to remind your dance families that, is that there are costs going up. So we want to encourage you, when you think of your strategic planning, that prices are going up in all the areas, and we want to make sure you feel confident to raise those prices. And I know we could go on for a long time about that, but when it comes to setting your prices for dance wear and costumes and t-shirts and logo wear and whatever you're selling to your parents, I would encourage you, and Jill would too, to write those prices in pencil, subject to change, until you get a really good view of what all the vendors are going to roll out for prices, so that you can then confidently move forward.
Yes. And we have a podcast specifically on pricing that I'll reference in this one. I want you to go listen to that. And we also have a wonderful coaching call for our members who have joined us. And we've opened the conversation for pricing as we head into the new season with all the volatility and all the inflation and the rising costs across the board. So it is definitely important to remember that your dance education is definitely priceless, but we want you to set your pricing well as you head into this new season.
Exactly. And then when it comes to strategic planning, the part that no one opened a dance studio to become a bookkeeper. I know that for certain, or a CPA or an accountant, but budgeting is where it's at. And so, Jill, I know you are passionate about this as well, because a budget actually is more freeing than it is constraining. And I had to really, guys, I was terrible about this. I would run like in the other direction of numbers, but I now have seen it transform the business in all the areas I touch in business, is that budgets are actually freeing because it gives you clarity.
Yeah, they can be scary at first. There's no doubt about it. And it can seem overwhelming, like, oh, I really don't want to have to sit down and do budgeting. And it's going to take a lot of time. And I don't want to look at my numbers. There are so many reasons why you should not or could not. You could do that all day long, but it is really important to know that once you do start budgeting and you start taking some reviews and keeping up to date with things, it frees you up. It frees the mind space up. It frees you up physically to do more and look and plan ahead. So all part of strategic planning has to revolve around some budgeting. So if you're not a good budgeter, now's the time to say, okay, I'm going to dust off my spreadsheets, and I'm going to become better at this year. And I'm going to be, more empowered because I have the numbers in front of me.
Exactly. And we have a great resource as well for our members. I know that you might also reference that, but doing a break-even analysis helps you see where your prices are impacting your numbers. So where we could do days topic on this, but bottom line is there's resources out there for you. If you've never dabbled in this space with fresh eyes, go for it. There's so many online tools to make it easier. And you can start to reference the past season you just came out of, the last 12 months, as a starting point. So if this isn't your encouragement to get going on budgeting, I promise you this is your virtual hug that you've got that. You can do it. And there's a lot of easy ways to get started. And as we kind of round out the conversation about strategic planning, I think it's important that you put fresh eyes on your policies and procedures as a dance studio owner. We have all had to modify this extensively around the health and safety protocols for the past couple of years during the pandemic. But now, Jill and I really want to encourage you to look at your policies and procedures as they roll up also into the economics of your business. From how do you handle inclement weather cancellations, sicknesses, we talked about at the beginning of this, absenteeism, how are you handling paying dance teachers who call out for whatever reason, substitute teachers, all the fees and it's everywhere. So time to take some real stock in your policies, right, Jill?
Yeah. And so you could have your internal policies for your faculty and staff, and then also your policies that are forward facing for your families. Are they accessible? Can you refer to them quickly? Are you taking a good stock and a good review? And as we know, Suzanne, there's always going to be a new policy and a new thing that you need to put in place, because when we think we've seen it all, then something happens and we say, oh, we're going to need a policy and a procedure for this. So make sure that you're taking a quick review of those. And believe it or not, your parents are not going to read the long policies and those checklists that you make them sign off on. But if you do need to refer back to them, at least you'll have all of that information that they did sign off on the policy, and you can feel very empowered to refer back to it should there be a need in the future.
Yep, exactly. Strategy rolls up into how we do things here. And lastly, I think the big thing that we really want to encourage you listening to this is that we need you to be your awesome self, and burnout is real. And so the flip side of strategy and planning is like to take care of you. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have your heart in this business, the business will really chew you up and spit you out. It's hard to run a dance studio well in the face of all of the challenges with the complexities of dancers and families and faculty and staff. And it's an incredible blend of business and art at an uncommon hour of life. So you've got to take time to recharge, and it's more than just take a nap or go to a yoga class. All the things we just talked about are going to be the foundation for you to go really take care of you. Wouldn't you say, Jill, that helps you take care of you?
It really does. And one thing that you can do is set time in your schedule and in your calendar. I think most of you would say, if it's in my calendar, I'm going to do it. But we neglect to put things in like self-care. We'll say, oh, okay, I know I want to visit with friends, but we're less apt to look at our schedule and plan it out ahead of time unless we put it in. So I like to take Post-it notes on calendars, or I like to take time in my schedule and schedule in ahead of time vacations, staycations, my workouts, my time with friends, even taking an hour once a week to do my planning for the next week. I put it in my calendar so that it's there, and I hold myself to it just like I would a meeting with somebody else. I think it's really important to take time with your family and friends. We've been so separated, and now we're kind of coming back into everything, and it's a little overwhelming, but really taking time to do that. And we have a great community with our dance studio owner members. And that is also a wonderful place to be able to recharge, because you can ask questions, and it's so supportive. Wouldn't you say, Suzanne? Our members are our biggest fans, and they support and cheer everyone on. So that's another place. If you need some extra support, please feel free to check us out. And if you're not already a member, we invite you into our community for sure.
Yeah, we really want to shine a mirror back on you and say, why are you working so hard? Because at the end of the day, we need you to be there. The parents will come and the parents will go. The kids will come and the kids will go. But at the end of the day, you are the most important thing. And so we just really want to encourage you that, yes, strategic planning is actually your access to some freedom in the business. I think it'll give you some real perspective to know that with that framework, you can start to find those answers to problems that maybe were keeping you up at night that you thought were so dreaded and hard, when actually they're not as, scary as they seem. When you, to your point, Jill, you get in a community that supports you, you see that this is actually some normal cyclical behavior. We're going to help you. We need you to take care of yourself. And then that will free you up to start doing the things that people talk about, delegating confidently, raising prices confidently. All of those things it's like a wheel with like spokes and a hub. They all connect. And at the middle, it's you. And without you, none of this exists. So we just, again, this is your virtual hug from Jill and I to nobody works harder than you. Nobody works harder than you. So what we want to do is remind you to take a step back, give yourself the gift of time, and do some strategic planning to help you make this next season incredible.
And that's a great place to end this podcast. Thank you, Suzanne, for wrapping that up so well.
Yeah. Till next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.